CBSE Board, Class 11, History, Chapter 2, Part 21, Audio by Renee Matthew. Because of two main reasons, that is, Baghdad's control over the distant provinces declined, and also there were internal conflicts between pro-Arab, that is, the people who supported the Arabs and the people who supported Iranian factions. There were a lot of conflicts. Because of these two reasons, there was disintegration of the Abbasid state. And it eventually led to the rise of sultanates. There was a civil war which broke out between the supporters of Amin and Mamun. These two people were the sons of the Caliph Harun al-Rashid. He was one of the caliphs of Abbasid state, and he had two sons. A civil war broke out. And as you know, civil war creates more tension and more conflicts between the people because it is internal. And that deepened the fragmentation of the people. Factionalism means fragmentation, and it also created a new power block of Turkish slave officers. So now slaves were gaining more importance and they were coming into the scene. And Turkish slave officers were known as Mamluk. Okay, so divisions were because of the conflict between these two people's supporters, and Turkish slave officers were coming into power, and their name was Mamluk. Now you must have heard of the two segments, the two divisions between the Islams itself, the Sunnis and the Shias. There was also conflict between these two groups, Shias and the Sunnis, the Shiism. It competed with the Sunni orthodoxy. Sunnis were more orthodox, they were more conservative for power. And so many dynasties arose. And some of the dynasties' names are Tahirids, Samanids, especially in the region known as Khurasan, Transoxiana, Turan or lands beyond the Oxus. And also the Tulunids in Egypt and Syria. So in all these places, there were a lot of small dynasties which came into being. Tahirids and Samanids were the names of the dynasties, especially in the places such as Khurasan, Transoxiana, Turan or lands beyond the Oxus, and Tulunids in Egypt and Syria. All these places are very important. And Abbasid power was soon limited to just central Iraq and western Iraq. You should remember that the power had expanded beyond the Arabian Peninsula and so many other places. But now it was limited only to central Iraq and western Iran. Only these two people supported. And you should also remember that there were majority Iranians. That was also lost by 945. The centrality which they had, the power which they had in Iraq and Iran also was lost in 945. Especially when Buyids, a Shiite clan, Shias, they actually supported Shias' belief. Buyids from the Caspian region of Iran captured Baghdad. Baghdad was the capital. So when Shias, these people, this clan actually captured Baghdad, this power, the power in Iraq and Iran also declined. Now, what about the Buyid rulers? Look at the dressing of these people, the Buyid rulers. They assumed various titles. There were people with so many titles, including the ancient Iranian title. They also had the ancient Iranian title in spite of defeating these people like the Shahanshah, King of Kings, but not that of Caliph. So they were known as Shahanshahs. That is King of Kings and not Caliphs, much more than the Caliphs. And they also kept the Abbasid Caliph as a symbolic head of their Sunni subjects. So of course, there were like two different groups, and we saw that Buyids followed the Shiism. Of course, Sunnis were also there in that particular empire, and Buyid rulers, they came and dominated this place. That also we saw. But you should remember that Sunni people were also there in the empire. So they kept the Abbasid Caliph. Though Abbasid power disintegrated, they gave one job to this Caliph to be the symbolic head. Means what? He will not have any power. Only for projection, only for show, he was the head of the Sunni subjects, just to control them according to these people's, the Buyids' interest. Now, the decision not to abolish the caliphate. So, what can you understand from here? You can understand that these people did not want to abolish Abbasid power completely. They encouraged it. Also, they did not want to create a problem with the caliph reign also. Okay, caliphate was encouraged. So, that was the decision of the Buyid. That was a shrewd move. It is not to support them. It is not to actually please them. They did not abolish the caliphate. That was a shrewd move because there was another Shiite dynasty which was known as the Fatimids. They had ambitions to rule the Islamic world. So now it is Buyid. Buyid is one dynasty which followed Shiism. And there's another dynasty which is known as Fatimids. This is the picture of their culture, the Fatimids. They also wanted to rule the Islamic world. So there will be more power from the Shiism group, and finally they can do away with Sunnis. Now, who were these Fatimids? They belonged to the Ismaili subsect of Shiism. Ismaili, that is, the followers of Ismail, the Prophet Ismail, of Shiism, and claimed to be descended from the Prophet's daughter. The Prophet had a daughter whose name was Fatima, and those were the descendants of Fatima. So they were direct heir to the Prophet, and hence the sole rightful rulers of Islam. So they claimed themselves to be the rightful rulers of Islam because they descended from the daughter of the Prophet. Now, from their base in North Africa, their base was in North Africa, they started conquering Egypt in 1969 and established the Fatimid Caliphate. So when they did not do away with the caliphate, it was very easy for them to set up their base in North Africa, and that is known as the Fatimid Caliphate. They did not do away with it, and they were supporting it because they wanted to install or ingrain the Shiite dynasty. So this particular part of this chapter is very important. They may ask questions on why they did not do away with the caliphate position, especially the Abbasid group. This is the answer to that. The old capital of Egypt, Fustat, okay, the old capital was replaced by a new city, Kahira. That is how the new capital came into being, Cairo, the capital of Egypt. So that was replaced. Fustat was replaced by Cairo or Kahira. That was founded on the day of the rise of the planet Mars. They believed that it was a rise of the planet Mars when they founded this capital. Mars is also known as Nirik, also called Al-Kahir. So there's a big connection between the planet Mars and the city Cairo. So this is the connection, very important historical point. So two rival dynasties patronized Shiite administrators, poets and scholars. Two rival dynasties. One is of course the Fatimid and the other one was the Buyid. These two dynasties, and Abbasid, you should remember, by this time disintegrated. Totally they were out of power. So now it is Fatimid and Buyid dynasty. So they were patronizing and they were also supporting the administrators, poets and the scholars. Now between 1950 and 1200, Islamic society was held together not by a single political power or single language of culture. So earlier they proclaimed that the language of culture was Arabic. So it was not single now. No longer it was single, but by common economic and cultural patterns. Different patterns were there. Diversity was there, but in spite of that, it was common. They shared some commonalities under these two rival dynasties, the Buyid and which other dynasty? Fatimids. Now what about the unity? Because two dynasties were ruling. The unity in the face of these political divisions, and we saw a lot of diversity was there in the economic and cultural patterns. So unity in the face of these political divisions was actually maintained because of the separation between the state and society. There was a great separation between the state and society. So because of that, also unity was maintained. How did they maintain unity is a very important factor. Persian as a language developed because of Islamic high culture. And there was a maturity of the dialogue between intellectual traditions. Okay, so Persian developed now instead of Arabian culture or Arabic. And there was a maturity of the dialogue. Dialogues were getting matured between the intellectual traditions. Okay, because Persian was the language. Scholars, artists, and merchants started moving freely within the central Islamic lands. And they also assured the circulation of ideas and manners. So people started moving freely within the central Islamic lands, and they also assured the circulation of ideas and manners, and it was encouraged. New ideas, novel, innovative ideas were encouraged. And some of these also percolated, that is, some of these also started piercing down to the level of villages, where people in the villages also started benefiting from these ideas or manners. It started seeping down to the villages also. The Muslim population was less than 10% in the Umayyad and early Abbasid period. So now it was less than 10% in the world during the time of Umayyad and Abbasid period. But now it increased enormously. Very important point. There was an identity of Islam which was actually establishing as a religion and a cultural system. Everybody started noticing Islam. And it was much different from the other religions of the world, and it was more sharper because of the unified system that they always followed. There was a lot of discipline and ideology followed by the Muslim world. So it was much sharper, stronger, and there was unity also. And it made the conversion possible and meaningful. It is not that they simply converted people. It was more sharper and it was meaningful. Now look at the population of the Muslims. It had increased enormously in the world. The green part, which is the green section, okay, in this particular map. Now there was another ethnic group which was added to the Arabs and Iranians. Apart from those two dynasties, two different ethnic groups came into being with the rise of the Turkish sultanates in the 10th and 11th centuries. What is the title of this particular portion? The fall of caliphate and the rise of sultanates. So with the Turkish, so now you know who were the sultanates. They came from the Turkish regions. They were Turkish. So there was another ethnic group which was coming up in the Arabs and Iranian parts, and they were the Turkish sultanates. Now the Turks were nomadic tribes. They moved from one place to another. They were not settled. And that too, they came from the Central Asian steppes, the grasslands of Turkestan. Very easy to remember. Central Asian steppes of Turkestan. That is northeast of the Aral Sea up to the borders of China. So somewhere there, from there they came. And they started gradually getting converted to Islam, the Turks. And the Turks had some skills. They were riders and warriors. And they slowly entered Abbasid, Samanid, and Buid administrations. Look at their clever strategy. They started entering the administration part, the administration sector. And you should remember that they were very skilled riders and warriors. And how did they enter the administration sector? As slaves and soldiers. And they started rising to high positions because of their intelligence. And also because of the loyalty and military abilities. So when you have got military abilities, it's very easy to rise to this position. And they were very, very loyal also to their higher authority. So that is more than enough for all these people to actually give them the higher post. So slowly from slavery to higher post. Now, the Ghaznavid Sultanate was established, the most important part. It was established by Alp Tajin in 961 and consolidated by Mahmud of Ghazni. So he established it in 1961. It was further consolidated. The meaning of the word consolidated has a lot of prominence in the history, the world history. It was further established by Mahmud of Ghazni.